everybody, and welcome to the place where streams come true. And today we are talking about episode 6 from WandaVision. And wow, there is a lot to unpack. But
Oh yeah.
first, I am not alone, so I'm going to bring in my lovely co-host, Helen. Helen, how are you doing?
I'm great. This episode was amazing. I really enjoyed it. So stuffed full of Easter eggs.
Yeah, even stuff that, like, I guess because I've been watching like those Easter egg videos, like I recognized right away the kids' costumes and things like
Yeah.
that. I was just kind of like, I'm also gonna be interested to see what you think, what time period this is. I think there's some clues, but Twitter has been kind of going back and forth on, is this the 90s? Is this the oddies? And I was like, oh, I have my feelings. Obviously, being a 90s kid, I was like, no, we're a bit later, but we'll break down into that in a little bit. But yeah, first impressions of kind of this episode.
Yeah, we are into the part of WandaVision where we are getting more answers than questions per episode, but definitely a couple of questions too. So it's been good to kind of see this all develop, I think.
Yeah, I definitely it's funny because I always watch it, if I can with my better half, and it's funny anytime, like, because she's, like, a super sleuth as well, like, may not know all the, like, Marvel lore,
Yeah.
but she'll pick up things like when a character goes, "Oh, do you want me to change something for you?" We're all like,
Mm.
"Wait, what? What does that mean?" And we both do this actual body thing where we both kinda go, "Hmm," like, we're like, I don't know how to describe, like, little, like, prairie dogs or, like, meerkats where we're like, "What?" So no, I really enjoyed it. I always love Evan Peters. I've always loved him. But
He
it's
is bringing it this
yeah,
episode. Woo!
he really is. Plus, I'm really loving her. Like every episode, I just love Olsen more and more and more and more. And I'm just like, she's amazing. And like, especially when she goes into mom mode, I'm like, yes, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
digress.
To be honest, I can obviously talk forever about how much I love Paul Bettany, but what's really surprised me is how much I love those kids. They are so endearing, and
They
I love them
are.
so much.
They're so cute. Like I'd liked it when they aged up in the previous
Mm,
episode, like when they were itty bitty, like I think they're supposed to be like 5, and then when they went to 10, I was like, okay, I'm digging this, and
yeah.
yeah, I love Wiccan and Speed, even though
I
they
know.
obviously haven't outright said their names, but I love that you called it. We're totally going
Mhm.
that direction. But let's break down the episode. So, what all happens?
So, we start with another glorious intro. Um, Insane Malcolm in the Middle vibes, which was just wonderful. Um Really enjoyed sort of the opening being very much, Wanda using her powers to camera, Vision being very Vision to camera. It's all sort of bets are off, I guess. Also liked seeing Agnes in the opening, as she has been for all of them. Despite not really featuring a huge amount in this episode, it kind of continues the although you could kind of argue against it right now, I do still think she's a fairly important character in this
Mhm.
universe. And the fact that she still remains in the opening credits despite not really featuring very much in the events of the episode of WandaVision.
Yeah.
She's in WandaVision, but not the episode.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you feel about
Yeah,
that opening?
I it was very interesting because, yeah, I guess I never, until you literally just said it, didn't clock Malcolm in the Middle. Like, I couldn't clock, like, what the intro was supposed to be, whereas obviously the previous episode was family ties, growing pains, a little bit of Full House in there, whereas this one I was like, "Whoa," and so I guess
Yeah.
the whole talking to camera, like,
That's
breaking that fourth
Frankie
wall,
Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle,
I
100%.
didn't yeah, I totally didn't catch that 'cause I was thinking, Modern Family, which I think we're
Mm,
gonna get more next episode because 'cause we've
yeah.
kinda seen it in some of the promotional materials, so thank you, shame on me, I should yeah. But I will say, I do think we're in the oddies because of we talked about Agnes, and it sounds ridiculous, but she's wearing those track bottoms or those
Juicy on
sweatpants
the butt.
with the writing on the butt, which that did not come until, like, 2000 onward. So, I don't know, and then some of the things that they do, the flashback with the kids, like, we'll break this down kind of more in the Easter egg parts, but, I mean, it was funny, I was really super sleuthing and, like, looking things up and kinda going, "Hmm."
Well, that's kind of the thing because I think Malcolm in the Middle ran, like, into the aughties, so
Yeah.
people's fashions change during the show, right? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
the opening I think stayed the same the entire run.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of still got very Malcolm in the Middle vibes to it. The setups, like how it was actually filmed. Obviously with the kids talking to camera and the adults never doing that. Specifically, it's always Malcolm who talks to camera, but because I guess because they're twins, they both can.
Yeah. So no, and
um,
I love the twins. I love kind of the setup, and I just love how like also kind of like a little Easter egg what they talked about Evan Peters, and they're kind of like shh the way he's snoring and everything. Like oh maybe he's like a vampire or something, which was actually a little bit of a throwback to his character in American Horror Story Hotel, where he housed vampires. So I don't
yeah.
know. There's another very on the nose one. I'm pretty sure you picked up later in the episode, but yeah. So
I
what?
to be to be
Go
honest,
ahead.
I did wonder a little bit with that whole bit with being a vampire and blah blah blah. I did wonder if maybe at some point during casting, during this whole thing when they were like setting up, okay, we're going to do WandaVision, this is how we're going to play it. Oh, let's get Evan Peters back. Whatever conversations they had, they went, hey, can you do that sort of vaguely Eastern European accent so that you could be a little bit more like the old Pietro? And he tried it and sounded like Dracula. And they went, I don't think we'll be doing that.
Yeah.
Probably never happened, but it was a great like mini fantasy for me to have of Evan Peters being like, I want to suck your blood. And like, was that what you wanted? Was that
Yeah,
very
and they'd be like
Sokovian?
and they're being like, "Nah, okay, moving on."
But that cracked me up a little bit. But really, really enjoyed all of his performances in this episode.
Yeah, he really was, and he made because also the way his character was, he made me think kind of like, "Who are you?" kinda
Yeah,
thing, but what I love is I love how we finally got to see that, everyone's getting ready for Halloween, they're explaining, of course, the twins have 2 different ideas of what Halloween is, kinda thing, and then we're now seeing all the traditional kind of comic book Easter eggy costumes. I mean, Scarlet Witch, of course, again, we saw this from the promotional materials
yeah,
and tongues have been wagging since. So it's so cool to kind of see it in its context. But what I loved was not only did we get Vision, not only did
yeah,
we get Wanda, we got Quicksilver, we got Wicked, and we got Speed. And I was just like, I loved it. And what I love about it, because again, like, I always think of my parents, like if they were to watch this show,
yeah,
that it was great is that could just be a fun, oh, this is costumes to them, but for obviously the super geeks and things, it's a nice balance of like, hey, here's a shout out, but you don't have to be like so in tune that you're like, well, what does this mean kind of thing.
yeah.
But I
I
loved it.
I did find it kind of fun that Wanda and Vision had very clearly sort of made outfits. So they were, bright colors. They looked like they were fresh out of a costume bag. Whereas once Pietro puts his outfit on, it's very much a t-shirt with the line on it, like a like first cosplay kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, I wish we'd seen him in like the crazy blue.
Yeah.
But I guess that's also one of those things where Wanda has obviously prepared a little bit more for herself and Vision, and not quite so much for Pietro.
Yeah, definitely. I just love that. I love that whole exchange of what are your costumes, and he's just like takes the kid's hand, is like costumes, and just
Yeah.
boosh. I loved it.
Um,
Absolutely loved it.
loved the sort of, oh, what are you dressed as? She's a Sokovian fortune teller. And then the explanation for Vision, a Mexican wrestler.
That was hilarious, and I love like
Very
she
cute.
actually speaks Spanish, and then he's kind of just like my better half, kind of going yeah,
Chili con
shimmy,
carne.
yeah. I was just laughing so hard. But I also going back to your comment about the costuming too. What I also loved is when Paul Bettany is like in not
With the red
Vision
face
makeup.
paint.
Yeah, I love that you could see like the eye lines and things like what a normal person, not someone who's been on in a makeup chair for 4 or 5
Yeah.
hours. And I just it's that little detail that I absolutely loved, and I'm hoping it's intentional. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I there's actually something I want to come to a little bit later about sort of intentional versus like Easter egg versus Easter egg, and
Oh, that'll
what's
be
really an Easter
interesting.
egg and what's not. But we did have that sort of little bit of tension where he comes down in the outfit and she's like, "Oh, thank you for humoring me," and he says, "There was nothing else in my wardrobe." And
Yeah.
there's sort of that moment of like he knows that she knows that she knows that he knows
Yeah, well, I
that,
mean,
and
we got
it's
that.
all a little bit off. So
Sorry, and we, because, yeah, we got that massive exchange in the previous episode,
yeah,
that whole, like, the whole loving, doubting husband is kinda gone now, like, because it's like he's basically the puppet has no strings now and is kind
mm,
of questioning everything, and that continues on in this episode
yeah,
kind of thing, which I have to say, I told you this in a text message. So, funny story, the previous episode, so with the big Evans Peters reveal, my video froze and I watched it for 5 minutes, I kid you not, 5 minutes, because I thought it was intentional, because we've had episodes where there's an intentional edit, and an
yeah,
intentional pause, and rewind, so I thought it was right, they're fighting, so she's paused the broadcast,
yeah,
and they're gonna continue on, because it was right as the credits were the in-show, not the actual show, credits were going, so I was like, "Oh, this is a thing." But then, like, so I missed that whole thing where, like, they're fighting, they're
yeah,
going up in the air, and he doesn't believe me. But the minute I heard, like, the doorbell, and then when we got to, like, the alarm of them, like, "Hang on, someone's coming," I don't know
yeah.
why, I just kept watching it, and then totally missed that whole Evans Peters reveal. And it was just like, "Oh, wait, I don't think this is intentional," so
Nope.
because I was on my phone, scrolled back and missed this whole so that whole first reveal was just kinda killed because I was just
Oh.
like, "Oh." I heard his voice, but didn't see him,
Oh,
but
it's a
yeah.
shame that you heard his voice because, like, that could
Oh.
have been, like, a double reveal where you're like, "It's him! It's not, but a second
Yeah,
time."
'cause they're clever because obviously you just see the back of the head first and the hair
And he's
matches.
a grown adult now.
He
Like,
is.
remember when he was just a baby?
Yeah. So anyway, so it's interesting kinda going back to full circle here, sorry about that, but, like, you're seeing that continuation of that tension,
Yeah,
and even throughout this whole episode, they're definitely pulling apart, and I'm curious when we get to our speculation, like, where we think this is going, because
yeah,
it's like, yeah, because you're right, is that who's controlling who, or who knows who does
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So what happens next? So our kids, they're talking about
Well,
Halloween. Vision's
yeah,
on the quote night watch.
yeah, it is kind of fun in this scene and all future scenes with him, how almost caricaturish Pietro is of being in a 90s TV show. Um, Wanda and Vision seem a little bit more still TV show, but a little bit more normal in their conversation, whereas he's just like this rad uncle, and he's just like quipping all over the place, and it's just really fun to see. But yeah, Vision kind of says, "Oh, I'm going out to do my community watch, whatever it's called. I keep forgetting the words. Um,
Night watch.
I don't know if it's Night Watch.
Or
It's
is it neighborhood watch?
Neighborhood Watch, that's the one.
That's it. I know
Why does
watch is
that
in it.
always go out of my head? But yeah, he, says he's going out, and she says, "That's not what you're supposed to do."
Yes.
And they have, again, that little bit of a standoff where he knows that she knows that he knows.
Yeah, that's again, there's a lot of kind of these little clues. I mean, we got the big one in the previous episode where, like, you had Agnes kind of go, do you want me to do that again, kind
Yeah.
of thing. And so that's kind of started that, where it's like, and it makes me wonder, is her grasp of the illusion falling, and
Mm.
because all because this was not happening in those 50s, 60s, 70s shows where you had the kind of almost like errors or bloopers. It was
Yeah.
just like, so it's interesting that it seems like each as the show progresses and the in show progresses, there's more of this. Like, it's almost like that wall is falling, like the illusion is falling, and I don't know how to explain it. I'm not doing a really good job, but
No, I
yeah,
it's weird because it's I think it's only been like a week or 2 in universe since this whole thing really started. Um, I can't remember the actual time frame that they said, when she went to the Sword headquarters, but that's obviously, like, the starting point. Um, it can't have happened before then. Um So it's been a relatively short period of time. But yeah, we see some things happening at the end of this episode that kind of make you go, "Oh, maybe it's maybe she's better than better than that."
Yeah, definitely. So when do we get we so they got kids go off, do their Halloween thing. Now we cut back to, correct me if I'm wrong, we cut back to normal time period, and
Yeah,
they're doing the
and it
letterbox
turns
thing,
out
which
Haywood sucks.
oh, he does, and I don't know if he's a villain or not. Like I'm
I think he is, man.
mm, yeah, I'm not
I mean,
sure.
considering that footage we saw in last episode, where Wanda went to get Vision from Sword, and on that, um, the footage we could see literally there are 5 tables. He is split into
Yes.
pieces. Um, Haywood, I think maybe we know who Haywood's missing person is. It's not a missing person, it's his missing stuff. Um,
Mm.
Vision is his quarry, as we see later in this episode. But yeah, turns out Haywood sucks.
Yeah, and, like, trying to, like, do the whole missile thing in the previous episode, and, like, it's interesting because obviously there's, like, some tension with, like, Monica Rambeau and things like that, but she still believes Wanda is a something, it's not her fault, like, even by being kicked out of the portal and things like that, she's still being an advocate, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that, like, Hayward's just like, "Nope, you're out, you don't work," and I love, like, Darcy kinda speaks up too, and he's like, "Do you work for me?" And she's like,
It's
"I
like,
don't
"No, no."
know," and I think we've all had those jobs where we're like, "Are you my manager or are
Yeah.
you my manager?" Like, we could both relate to that, where you're like, "Wait, who am I
Yep.
going to, and who's my authoritarian here?" But, yeah, and they get pretty much kicked out of the base.
Yeah, we have a little name drop for Carol Danvers.
Yes, we do.
He The impression that I'm getting from this is he was quite happy to report to Monica Rambeau, to Maria Rambeau, but Monica is like the boss's kid who he's been nice to because it was the boss's kid. And now he's been promoted above the boss's kid. He can do what he wants now, and he has no interest in being sort of fakely nice to her.
Yeah.
It's kind of the impression that I'm getting there.
Yeah. So our characters are getting escorted off base and everything, and woo for the win.
Oh,
Like,
best boy.
oh my god, that was amazing. I mean, he initiates it because, like, on my
Yeah.
second watch, I noticed he initiates it, and Monica does this great, like, "Oh, alright, yep, here we go." And then even
Yep.
Darcy's kinda like, "You didn't tell me the plan here."
Well, she is the scientist.
Yes, but I loved it because I mean, Wu is always the kinda kooky, goofy, "Oh, he got away" kinda character in Ant-Man and things like that,
Yeah.
so to see him being
Like,
kick-ass,
really good at his job.
that was amazing. I was like, plus that's good to kinda see. You could still be the comical character, but you can still take care of yourself, and I don't know, I
Yeah.
just loved it. I was just like, "Ooh," and that's why I wanted to make it a hashtag, but I was like, "No, I won't," but I was like, "Woo for the win. Yes."
Yeah, for sure. Oh, man.
Uh,
Yeah, they take out their, escorts and, get back in disguise and head straight back into the base,
yes, and
which I
that's where
just
we
love.
get a couple discoveries, don't we? About is this where we find out about Monica, or no, is that later?
No,
Maybe
this is a
not.
little bit later because we flash back inside the hex, as we are now calling it. Um, and where last episode Vision was like, "Hey, where are all the other kids?" This episode, there's a million.
Yeah.
um, and we see sort of a whole bunch of different, yeah, just an enormous cast of kids out there trick or treating, and Wanda sort of testing Pietro to see who who he who he
Yeah,
might
who he
be or
really
what's going
is.
on there. Which again is one of those things where I say I appreciate that she is in control largely, but she is definitely not exclusively in control of this.
Mm,
Because otherwise she would know, I think, why and how that's happened.
yeah,
Um, and then we have this is what I wanted to talk about, Easter eggs that aren't Easter eggs.
yes.
So, the first couple of episodes, we had all sorts of Easter eggs, which now, looking back, we can say were Easter eggs for the viewers in you and me.
Yeah.
rather than Easter eggs for a viewer within the show. This kick-ass Easter egg, I truly cannot fathom what is going on with that, because it felt so deliberate, the way
Mhm.
that she said, "Kick-ass." Like, "Oh, yes, like, I recognize that thing, which can't exist in your universe because your brother was kick-ass." And it's thrown me, because if it had just been like a throwaway, "Oh, that's kick-ass," sure, then you could be like, "Oh, yeah, look, it's the same guy." But I just don't know why that was delivered in the way that
Well,
it
because 'cause they're
was.
both in it. Because Evans Peters is in it too. He's in Kick-Ass as well. They both were in that film together,
But
kinda thing.
then why bring it up? Because they can't
Ah,
be in the
yeah.
film.
I know. It's funny you say that. I didn't take it as, like, as kind of like a in-universe thing. I mean, I just viewed it as kind of like a, "Okay, here we go. Hey, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, let's do a really on the nose, like, for those
Yeah.
who haven't been catching the Easter eggs, here is a you're not gonna
Easter
miss
egg.
this." Yeah,
Yeah.
big Cadbury's Easter egg, like, there
But
you
yeah,
go, but
it's just one of those things where, like, that kick-ass Easter egg is, um, in the same realm as having, Grim Reaper's helmet in the second episode opening. It is a thing that is for external viewers of the show
yeah.
to go, "Oh, hey, look at that cool thing." It's just that, unfortunately, we have a TV show within a TV show, and it means that I've analyzed everything to death. So I no longer know what's real. That's the point I'm making here.
Well, and I'm getting there too, so but I love that, like, within the scene, you kinda have that comical, like, the Night Watch or not I don't know why I keep calling it the Night
Neighborhood
Watch.
Watch.
Neighborhood Watch. The Night Watch, I think, is Watchmen. I don't know. No, that's Game of Thrones, but
Game of
anyway,
Thrones.
I digress. I'm getting all my, like, fandoms mixed up. Anyway, the Neighborhood Watch, and I love that it's that typical kind of, "Oh, the
The
candy's gone?"
90s gag, yeah,
It
of like,
is, and
say the thing,
then
and then the thing
something
happens.
happens, like, that was great. Though it was kinda like, "Don't smash the pumpkins, people took time carving those pumpkins, I used to
Yeah,
carve pumpkins, you know I carve pumpkins," and I was just like, "Don't do that," but anyway,
yeah,
um, but this is where it was interesting that, like, Wanda finds out that, Vision isn't
on
at the
duty.
watch
Yeah,
on duty, and this is where we kinda get at that other kind of breaking not breaking the fourth
yeah,
wall, because obviously breaking the fourth wall would be talking to camera, but kind of the whole breaking character, kinda like,
yeah.
"Something you
"Something I
want me
can
to"
do for you, Wanda?
yeah,
Do you something
"change for you?"
changed?"
Yeah, that was just kinda like, ugh, and even she's kinda like, "No." Did you get the vibe that she's kinda like, "Wait, why are you asking me about changing something?"
It w
Like
it was the same vibe I got when Agnes asked the same thing last episode,
yeah.
and last episode, I kind of got the impression that it was as a performance for Vision, like, "Oh, no, Vision's here, we can't, like, act like we don't know what's going on," but now this is just her and Herb, so there's no reason for her to act surprised,
Yeah.
um, and she doesn't seem sort of annoyed that he is breaking out of it. This is what I'm saying, right? I don't think it's entirely Wanda.
Yeah. Because there is sometimes I do genuinely think, and we get this kind of a bit later in the conversation with Pietro, because I'm not convinced it's him. I don't know because we haven't talked about this whole multiverse thing yet, but we'll get there.
No.
But yeah. So she finds out, they all walk on, and then what happens next?
So we also, just to mention, there's a whole bunch of different costumes in the background. There's pirates and zombies and mummies or whatever. But there is one kid dressed as Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. So Mortal
Yes,
Kombat is something that exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a product that you can buy. Just thought I'd throw that out there
I
as
did
like a
notice
fun
that.
in-universe weirdness.
Yeah. I did notice that because at first I thought it was a nod to the video game, but then I was like, "Oh, no, that was Mortal Kombat versus DC." So, yeah, but I did say because Sub-Zero is actually, like, my favorite Mortal Kombat character of all time, to the point when I was in primary school, I drew comics. Yes, I was
Amazing.
like yeah. Not very well, but yes. But anyway, so, I did see that too because I was with my
Amazing.
second watch kinda going, there's gonna be these kids are gonna be in funny costumes. And again, trying to nail down the time period as well of when is
Yeah.
this? Is this 90s? Is this oddies kind of thing? Because I had those Dance Dance Revolution little dance
Same.
pads for the PlayStation, and I was like, I had
Yeah.
those when I was in college, which was like 2003 to 2006. So that's why I was like, but yeah. So
But
anyway,
yeah,
so
I
we
I feel that.
say again.
I feel that the sort of like sleuthing of which exact time period is it, and that's actually something else I can come with to in a minute as well,
Nice.
um, about weird time periods. But after we have that conversation with Herb, we then see where Vision is because he is not with the neighborhood watch, and he is patrolling a little bit further out of town. Um, and we get to see that sort of the wonderful like super creepy like horror style thing with the woman who and the man in the background who's putting out pumpkins but just consistently putting out pumpkins, and she is consistently putting up decorations for Halloween as though they've been given one instruction but nothing to follow it. So they just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and the single tear, very dramatic.
I missed that the first time, but the second time I was like, oh, okay. There was some definitely creepy inducing. Like we'll talk about this commercial in a
Mm,
second. That was also creepy AF.
yeah.
Jeez. Yeah.
In
Okay.
fact, the trailer, the advert is exactly what is next. And to me, this was a Petit Filou advert. But in the US, I'm guessing it's not called Petit Filou.
No, yeah, it's funny, and I'm really glad we're talking about this because we had kind of the claymation animation adverts. Now again, that was definitely more
Oh no, I mean
90s.
like the little kid yogurt things.
Yeah, we
Like
called them Go-Gurts, but they were like in
that's
a tube
oh,
kind of
those
thing.
are Froobs for us.
Oh,
So
okay. I love it. Here we go. Like childhood 101 British
but
versus
yeah, that
American
was
here,
such
but
a 90s Petit Filou advert. And this is probably the first advert that has just thrown me for a loop.
I was just like, "What?" Well, there's the not speculation. Well, yeah, I'll use the term speculation. There's the
Yeah.
speculation that the adverts, commercials, whatever word you want to use, is kind of a reflection of Wanda's trauma.
Yeah.
So the previous one obviously was on the nose with about making a mess when you didn't mean
You're
to.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yes, no, you're absolutely right. Sorry, you've completely hit the nail on the head. Go ahead, continue what you're saying, but you're completely right. I've
um,
absolutely clocked what you're about to say.
so I'm hooked now. No pressure. But this one it's kind of like there's the thing about unlock your magic and things like that, and like this child character can't,
Yeah,
and literally like ends up starving to death, and
yep,
it's very gruesome. Like this would
yep,
scare me as a child, like oh, but it's made me wonder because like credit to my better half is that oh she's trying to unlock her magic and can't, or I took it as they were in a war torn country and all they could get to eat was kind of these like you know yogurts that like people are like oh that's disgusting, no one wants to eat this, I'll give it to the starving children, they'll eat anything, and then they're so malnourished they can't even open it. I don't know, maybe I'm going a bit deep here, but yeah, but it's just kind of one of those, but it seems to be touching on her
okay.
trauma. So please
S
go. I
so
know you're like
so you said, like, the adverts are like their trauma, right? But
yes.
they're all, like, past trauma, and one of the specific things from Age of Ultron when they're describing what happened, when, like, we the Tony Stark the bomb dropped and they sat there for 3 days waiting for Tony Stark to kill them. Like, they couldn't move, they couldn't eat, they couldn't do anything, they were, like, that's and because the tagline for it is "The snack for survivors."
Yeah.
Which to me is like, yeah, like you were saying, like maybe like that's all they didn't have any food. They were orphans. They were like trapped under a building for 3 days. Like, yeah, I can see that. I can absolutely see that. I just don't know who the shark is.
Well, yeah.
The
But I mean
shark
the
threw me
shark
so hard.
could be like, Tony Stark, Shark, or
Mhm.
Shark can be, very, because it's interesting because he also says, "Oh, I used to be hungry all the time until or he says some kind of
Yeah.
line or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, I was looking, there was a tiny little crab and all sorts of stuff. Like, I was just trying to pick this
Yeah.
apart, because it's still not quite as Easter eggy as like the first two were, with
Yeah.
pulsar sound and the Hell Hydra logo kind of thing. So the Lagos one, that was a bit kind of like, okay, I just love that tagline for that commercial, when you made a mess and you didn't mean to. It's just
Yeah.
like, and that's when I was like, you know what? I think the people in the community and everything, the speculations of this being like a reflection of her past trauma, is all making sense. And then seeing this one and how dark this was, I was like, whoa, we're going
Yeah.
there, and wow. So
Yeah. That was to be honest, they're all such good adverts. But I still think, because there was at the beginning of the season there was a lot of chatter about, oh, maybe these are sort of subliminal messages being sent to her. But I
yes,
think this is very much from Wanda, because they are all so specific to her.
yes, very much
Um,
so.
I still have money on, if we ever see Wanda and Pietro's parents, it's going to be those two from the adverts. I'm I think I'll still put
Oh,
money on that. As you know, like, what characters are you gonna cast in the adverts who are consistent presences? Um, but like I say, we have no idea yet.
but that's actually a good point, because it is the same actors. I mean, obviously, except this
Yeah,
one, because this was like a claymation kind of animation thing. But all the other ones, you're right, same woman, same man. So yeah. But so yes, that
yeah.
was the commercial. And then I
Yeah.
think we get back to them on the street at night, trick or treating.
Yes,
Yes?
they are coming past a cinema with two films being shown. We have The Incredibles, with a poster for The Incredibles, because get that Disney money, and Parent Trap. So Parent Trap is 1998 and Incredibles is 2004. So you can obviously say anything here, from, well, then obviously this is set in the noughties, to whatever films she saw when she was a kid.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, also very on the nose, as
Yes.
as movies go. Um, yeah, really, really enjoyed that. Like the twins and all sorts of. I mean, like, so many twins in this, like, connected to this universe. But yeah, and obviously a little superhero family with the parents and the
Exactly.
kids, all with their superpowers.
And the
Um,
kid being a little speedster as
yeah,
well, got Dash. So,
yeah,
but yeah, even that was one I didn't even have to like dig into. I was like, "Oh, I actually know this one."
yeah,
I did look at the dates, because I was like, "Okay, when was Parent Trap?" Because I remember the Parent Trap. And then when was this? And so I was like, "Okay, I think this is kind of showing, hey, because we kind of not going every episode is a decade. We're now kind of giving you a range of a decade. So we're
yeah,
going late 90s, early aughties, which that makes sense with a 98 to 2004 kind of thing. So that
yeah,
all makes kind of sense. But also, this is when we find out our little one has a super speed, which actually I just remembered something we forgot to cover in the Halloween bit. The Pietro character says, "Have fun, devil spawn."
yeah.
But so obviously, as we know, Devil Spawn kind of, I think that's a throwback to the comic bit where, like, you could probably explain this a bit better,
Yeah,
where
the kids are secretly, Horcruxes for Mephisto,
yeah.
and that's the easiest way to describe it. Everyone knows
That's
what a
actually a
Horcrux is
yeah,
now,
that's actually a
right?
really good way to put that. Yeah, definitely.
And
So,
they need to go away so that Mephisto can come back.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's good, like, when we see, I know you're like the Pietro character, I'm just like, Pietro. When Pietro has that little conversation, she sort of kind of asks kind of what he's doing here, and he sort of lists, like, the role of the passing, bit character who comes in for a couple of episodes, right? Come to town unexpectedly, create trouble with the brother-in-law, stir up trouble with the Rugrats, and ultimately give you grief.
Yeah.
um, which is, like I say, just classic 90s.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, kinda diving into that kind of stuff, but, I think this is where, like, we find out so they're walking down kinda talking about that, and this is where our little one figures out he has super speed because
Yep.
they're apparently giving away full-size candy bars down the street,
Yep.
and that's how he figures it out, and yeah, and so, of course, the 2 adults I love it, there's, like, excited and this is where I love Olsen as, like, that mom character where she's like, "Okay, baby, you can take it," and he's just like, "Wow, wow, 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 wow,
Yep.
wow, wow, wow," and she's just like,
Take your brother
"Okay,
with you.
if you're gonna break the sound barrier, just take your brother with you, because at this time, we don't know about brother.
Yep.
So, but no, it's very interesting. So we're really, and it's making me start to wonder. Where it's like, okay, they're now definitely having superpowers and things like this. This can't just be like a manifestation. That's a lot to be like, okay, you're my imaginary child, and you have the superpower, and you know what I mean. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Well, so that's another thing is when Pietro was talking to her, about, like, what he is doing right now, he says, "That's what you wanted, isn't it?" And it's almost like, say what Herb said, what Agnes said with, like, "Do you want me to do that again? Is there anything you want me to change for you?" It's very much like, there is some level of somebody knows what's going on and is doing this alongside her. Um, I also really enjoyed the little "What happened to your accent? What happened to yours?"
yes. Well, because that's great because of the whole, like, if this is kind of leaning towards a multiverse,
Yeah.
which again, well, I'm really looking forward to once we're done with the recap, kind of breaking this down. Obviously, in the X-Men Quicksilver, he was raised in America, so
Mhm.
he's not gonna have an accent kinda
Mhm.
thing, whereas obviously with the Marvel side, the twins got their powers and were in Sokovia, so,
Yeah, well, they're
eh
not really well, I say true mutants. They're not really true mutants in
yeah.
Marvel simply because of, the whole Fox deal.
Well, yeah.
So they had to enhance them, using the
Yes.
Mind Stone. Um, and I think there's gonna be a lot of especially now that Disney owns everything again, I think there's gonna be a lot of ramifications that come from, uh, mutants versus people who've had powers bestowed upon them, which
Mhm.
is another thing I wanted to get to, shortly. But in this conversation, Pietro, sort of she they're having this conversation about what's happened, and he says, "I was shot like a chump in the street for no reason," which to me says that isn't the Pietro from Age of Ultron,
Yeah.
because I don't think he would regret what he did like that, because to say that you were shot like a chump just feels like, "Oh, uh, it was a thing that happened and, like, it sucks," or whatever, like, but
Yeah.
it was intended, from my viewings of Age of Ultron, to be a heroic moment for him.
Correct, yeah.
Um, but then he says, "And the next thing I know, I heard you calling me. I knew you needed me." Um, so yeah, this is where I'm sort of like in multiverse thinking mode, because I have this like very sad mental image of um X like Fox X-Men Pietro one day just being shot because it needed to happen for the universe. He's just having a day and he gets shot in the street so that he can be reincarnated into a different universe. Just a
Yeah.
really sad, like, mental image, like, "Oh, poor thing. We've
Yeah,
just
where he's like, "I'm just
found the
enjoying my
dad."
Twinkies." Yeah. Um, so what happens next? So we have that kind of fun exchange, and we find out that our kids have super speed.
Yes.
Um, so what happens next?
We head back outside again, and Darcy and the gang have, sort of broken into a trailer, I guess, with lots of data in it.
Servers.
And yeah, just some little server room. And Darcy, by being a astrophysicist, is also a hacker because that's how comic books work. And we find out through her that Haywood is actually tracking Vision, and we actually see in another shot that it is the signature of the vibranium itself that he's tracking, and they're able to see sort of all these different sort of pings of all the different people in town and how they get more and more mm, stationary as you get
Yeah,
to the edge of
closer
town.
to the barrier.
Yeah. So we see them sort of discover this, and it's there's not a lot of other things that happen in that scene, because we hop back into town and we see Vision at the edge of town where all those things are stationary. And it kind of gives the impression of, say, a video game where the NPCs haven't loaded their animation yet. They're all just placed, waiting for a player to turn up, but they haven't actually started their animations yet.
Very much so.
Yeah, like the player, I guess, is Wanda.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was very interesting to say that because immediately, like when we first heard that, oh, he's got eyes in the sky, we were thinking, oh, he's tracking Wanda. But then we're like,
Mm,
no, he's tracking Vision. And then that's
yes.
where it's kind of like, okay, very interesting that kind of changes everything. That because
Yes.
from the beginning, or not from the beginning, but like the beginning of this episode and the ending of the last one, you were thinking he's tracking Wanda because she's a threat kind of
Yeah.
thing. Because he's always like, oh, threat, 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 shoot to kill, missiles, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, oh, we're tracking Vision. That's
Yeah.
interesting. And then so Vision, obviously, we're like you said, we're at the edge of town. And he's like, he just sees people frozen in place, and he's kind of like trying to speak to them. And correct me if I'm wrong. This is where he sees Agnes as
Yeah,
well.
he changes out of his, cute costume and into his gritty Marvel realistic costume,
Yes,
and, flies up to sort of see what's going on and gets that bird's eye view of a car at the edge of town just stopped at a crossroads.
yes,
Just so great, and we get to see Agnes dressed, in
as a
a
witch.
classic witch garb with the black and white striped wig like Party City, and yeah, so we get to see her sort of having a little bit of a crisis.
Well, and this is interesting because I want to break this down a little bit because obviously we
Yeah,
saw this a little bit in the trailers, and the whole like, am I dead?
are you
And
dead?
no,
Oh yeah,
why?
because you're dead.
Because you're dead, kind of thing. And also we get like a reconfirmation that Vision doesn't remember anything past this realm because he doesn't know what an Avenger is.
Yeah.
And he's like, but it's interesting at his core, he still wants to help. So it's like almost
Yes.
that nature versus nature kind of argument that he's always even reprogrammed. He has no memory whatsoever. He's like, I want to help you. What's going on? Kind of uses to wake her up. But what's interesting is she kind of goes into this crazy, like sporadic, you're dead, 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 and kind of like, all hope is lost, blah, 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 blah. And then he
Yeah.
zaps her back. But then she doesn't seem like she's switched characters again. So I'm wondering if it's all an act.
Yeah. Um, this, like the advert, is something else that's kind of thrown me for a loop whilst watching it. Um, I I was definitely surprised to see her behaving the way she was, especially with the sort of like, "Can you help us?" Um, to Vision. Yeah, you're one of the Avengers, you're Vision, are you here to help us? And bless him, he's like, "Yes, I'm here to help."
I'm here.
I don't know what that is.
Yes.
But yeah, it was very weird, and the fact that she kind of she either did take a wrong turn or she was trying to escape, but she specifically says, "No one leaves, Wanda won't even let us think about it." And
Mm.
yet there she is at the edge of town as though she had thought about it. So, yeah, I've still got, like, a lot of questions about that one.
Well, the other interesting thing is she says Wanda, but when we had the similar moment in the previous episode with oh, what's the guy's name? That's like his mom sick or whatever, like Vision zapped him
Norm.
and Norm, thank you. He doesn't say Wanda, he says her,
She.
she.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, we assume it's Wanda, but it's one of those, it could be one of those so clever when all the episodes are out and we've had the big reveal, we can go back and go, oh, nope, see, this is how this was played. But this one, Agnes outright says Wanda. And it's making me wonder if it's feeding into that, putting them against each other kind of thing. I mean, I wouldn't understand why. Like, what's the motivation
Yeah.
for the character to do that? But.
I mean, we're about to have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which has Zemo as the villain, which means that which is another character who wants to pit the superheroes against one another. So I don't know, it would feel kind of stale for them to do that twice.
So now that we kind of talked about Agnes and not quite sure what's going on there, we are now back with our three dynamic heroes, and
Yeah.
we learned some interesting tidbits about Monica.
Yeah, so the first thing that we hear is that she has a contact who will be on the ground shortly. Um, I think
Male
she said,
contact,
well, you
my
see,
guy.
you say that, but like my guy on the ground is kind of like a fairly, it's hard to sort of guess who that's going to
Hmm.
be, but I'm gonna just continue going with my scroll conspiracy theory and say, I want it to be Taylor so badly.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Oh, that would make my day. Desperate for my scroll conspiracy theory to be true.
I will literally just go ah and be like,
Yeah.
"Yep, she called it. She called it."
Yeah.
I know some people are also saying the guy from Fantastic Four,
Which one? Like Mr.
the
Fantastic?
stretch guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As
that
played by
he's
John Krasinski, because everyone's
yes,
convinced that he's gonna be Mr. Fantastic.
yes, yeah. I've been seeing that kind of on the Twitterverse, but yeah, we also find out so our team's getting ready to go. They're packing up, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'll just go back into the barrier, bish bash bosh." And Darcy's like,
You
"Yeah,
probably
about
shouldn't go
that.
back in there.
You shouldn't." And she's like, "Oh, why?" And she turns the screen. She's like, "Because you're being basically what was the word they
Rewritten.
used?
The
Yeah,
energy has rewritten your cells.
on a genetic level." Which
Yes.
of course is setting us up for her to be photon. I think it's
Which is
photon,
really,
proton,
yeah, Photon. It's really
photon.
exciting to see because, you can obviously with Marvel and the MCU in general, you can never tell if they are going to follow through with a story or not, or whether someone is going to just be kind of like a side character.
Yeah.
But to me, this says that we're going to get Photon, and we may get a team up with maybe in Captain Marvel too. It's going to be a Photon and Captain Marvel team up, which could be really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and remember, I don't know if people will remember, but on Maria Rambo's
Yes,
plane, her call sign was photon.
yes,
So obviously at the time that could just be an Easter egg, but then maybe not because that could be they've set it up. But so yeah, but I love how like again, kind of going back to like a very real world thing, she's like, well, I've seen cells metastasize
change.
and
Yeah,
go and so obviously back to the cancer thing, which I gotta say, going back to like her mom and things, that was such a low blow on the directors to like earlier in the episode to be like, maybe it's a good thing you weren't here when your mom died because
yeah.
oh man, that was a low blow,
Yeah.
like
This is what I'm
super
saying,
low.
he sucks.
I love it. Make that a shirt. He sucks.
He
But
does.
so this is where our heroes separate. Darcy is like, I'm gonna stay behind and I'm
Yeah,
gonna
sh there's
hack
one last thing, yeah, that
this
she
one
wants
last
to
thing.
say.
So our other two heroes leave, and then I believe, we go back to Wanda and Pietro walking around the
Yes.
city square.
Yes, I believe they are at the town square scare, which is
Yes.
what Agnes was looking for. Um, and, Pietro asks, "Where were you hiding all these kids up until now? Asleep in their beds? No need to traumatize them besides the occasional holiday special."
Mm,
Which was again, like, she hasn't created these kids out of nowhere. And I guess conversations we've had before about, how much effort is it for her to be sort of keeping everybody running in this town. It's
yeah.
definitely easier to keep things running if you can put away a bunch of people into
Yeah.
stasis, I guess.
Yeah. And then she kind of starts opening up about, he starts asking the questions like, how did you do this? And things. And of course, she's very hesitant because it's her brother, but is kind of a stranger. And of course, he goes, "Hey, I'm not a stranger. You can
And
tell
I'm
me,"
not your
kind of thing.
husband, he also
Yeah.
says.
Which
Like
is an
the two
interesting.
the two people you might want to keep secrets from, strangers and your husband.
Yeah. And we get this very kind of powerful. you know, she felt empty and like
Yeah.
nothing. But she keeps saying, I don't know how it happened. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
how it happened.
she said, "I don't know how I did it. I only
Yeah.
remember feeling completely alone, empty, I just endless nothingness."
Yeah.
Which again is one of those things where I'm like, there is still no explanation as to how this happened. Um, we don't know what if that feeling was before she went and stole Vision's body or after. We don't know. Yeah, we don't know anything here, which is just really,
Yeah.
really
So this is
fun,
why
and interesting.
we're still very much in the speculation. So somewhere after oh, and then we get like the
The dead
flashback of
Pietro jump scare.
yeah. Which this is why I'm kind of like, I don't think he is who he says he is, because it's just like, why would we, because then that means he's dead. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
Like,
this is kind of what worries me is that Evan Peters' Pietro in some other universe has been randomly shot in order to be pulled into this universe.
yeah, and I
That's a
just
sad thing.
yeah, I
Poor
just
baby
don't
angel.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and then I don't remember quite when it happens, but we have Vision who decides to go through the barrier.
Yeah. Before that though,
Mhm.
um, so one of the this is something my husband clocked and I didn't, and I feel so angry that he clocked, like, because I had to explain some things and then he just made a connection and it made me so mad. So Darcy is in the weird server room learning things, and she finds out about a secret project. The secret project is
Cataract.
called Cataract. And it was Brad who went, "Yeah, cataracts which affect your vision."
Yeah.
And I was so angry when he said, I was like, "How did I not clock that?"
I did clock in
It
my
made me
second viewing
crazy.
that obviously before events that happened shortly after this, she does send this to Wu because the
Yes.
email she types in. So after obviously events we're going to talk about in a second, it does get to him in time, but
Yes.
because I'm assuming this is the final firewall that she was talking about and why she stayed behind, kind of
Presumably,
thing.
yeah. Because of the like she seemed to act as though she had been successful. So we
Yeah,
can only assume this is the one thing she was trying to get through to.
and it makes sense with the codename Cataract. But I did notice that at first I didn't clock that actually on your side here. I didn't clock for vision, but I did think, oh, that's interesting, something that affects your eyes. So I didn't quite make the connection, but yeah.
Just, oh, just made me so mad. But yeah, so Vision obviously heads out of the barrier, which kind of does the same thing it did to Monica in trying to pull him back in
Yeah.
quite significantly.
Yeah, he's coming apart in pieces, and I think it very quickly establishes that there was no way for him to survive outside the hex.
Yeah, and there's actually an interesting line in a minute that I want to get to. Um, because as he is out there, trying to escape, and sort of Darcy comes out and sees, help him. Um, within Wanda's little world, Billy gets some psychic powers. Wiccan with his exactly as ill-defined powers as the Scarlet Witch has, and some telekinesis, telepathic
Yeah.
something. I don't know, whatever. Um, and he can see Vision surrounded by soldiers. But what's interesting is he sees Vision and the soldiers, and he says they think he's dying.
Yes.
Which to me, if I saw that, I would say he is dying.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny you say this. I literally had to go for a third watch, turn the subtitles on, and see if he said, I think he's dying or they think
They
he's
he's
dying.
dying.
Now, Gerald, my wife said, well, of course he's going to say they because he can see their thoughts and like read their minds kind of thing. So that's why he
Yeah,
would say there as in they are thinking he's
but
done. But it is weird.
yeah, because like, so you've got a couple of options, right? You've got he knows that the soldiers think he is dying, and he knows that Vision is not,
Mm,
because I mean, he doesn't react in any way when Pietro says, "Not like your dead husband can die twice." The kids don't seem to notice or care.
Yeah.
Um, and or it's they think he's dying and they're right. It's yeah, it's peculiar. It's a really strange
It was
wording,
a
I think.
and it was a very deliberate, and that's why I was just like, "Hmm." Then I have to go back because there was something about the brother, like, this is another thing that I want to go back and listen to when they were talking about early in the episode about trick or treating. I heard him say, "Your brother suppressed a lot of memories," but then my better half thinks he said, "You've suppressed a lot of memories," because she says, "Oh, I don't quite remember it like that." So that's another one of those, I
Yeah.
need to go back, look at the subtitles. But yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I thought that was a very interesting choice. I mean, he's still panicking because, like, something obviously is very wrong, but it
Yeah,
was a
of
very
course.
interesting word choice of saying they think he's dying, and that's
Yeah.
like, and of course, that's where I do love that she just basically shuts up the brother, and this is why
Yeah.
also I don't think he is who he says he is. How does he know about he's been dead if he literally was like, "Hey, I was in Shangri-La," which another little nod there, and then next thing I know, you called me. Well, then how do you know all this background stuff? How do you know that he's been dead? I mean, I thought it was interesting in the previous episode, he called him a popsicle, meaning
Yeah.
obviously someone dead on ice, kind of thing. It's
Well,
just like,
that's actually something I was thinking about when Agnes responded to him. I was half expecting her to like scream in shock like she just saw the corpse of Vision like properly.
yeah,
But no, I'm still getting the impression that everyone else is seeing him as we are.
yeah,
And the corpse jump scares are more Wanda's impressions rather than anyone else's.
yeah.
Um I do also think they both said after the, like, corpse jump scares, I think they both said, like, are you alright?" Like,
Yeah.
they don't know why she's reacting like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, very, very intriguing,
But
but
it's
she
just,
takes things into her own hands and just goes, "Well, I can't defend against them, so I will absorb them."
oh my god, so that was great, where it was just kind of like everything stops,
Yeah.
and she basically expands the hex and
Yeah,
absorbs things,
pretty
and
significantly,
yeah, like, it's a big so the camp gets taken, so, of course, I
and
love
turned
how,
into clowns because it's a
and
circus.
oh my god, and I love how the helicopter becomes a hot air balloon
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff, but what gets me a bit worried because we had earlier in the episode, homegirl Darcy is like, "Hey, if you go through the barrier, it rewrites you, and Monica, you've been rewritten twice."
Yeah.
Well, this is happening. I also love the little nod. Obviously, Darcy's gonna say, "Oh," but
Yeah.
because it's passing through the barrier, which makes everything more kid friendly or whatever, it turns into fudge. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think she actually was going to say, "Oh, fudge." I think was gonna say the more adult version, and then right as the hex was coming through, made it the more kind of PG version, which
Yeah.
is kind of funny. But I'm just worried for, like, I'm excited to see her in the sitcom because
Me
wasn't
too.
she in one called Two Broke Girls or something like that?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Or t yeah, I think it was. So it'd be so funny if, like, there's, like, a little nod that she's wearing, like, a waitress outfit, very similar to how she was in, like, Two Broke Girls or any, but anyway, I digress. That's, sorry, jumping a little bit ahead here.
No, no, that's fair, that's fair.
But, yeah, and we
And
keep
it's
thinking,
expanded right away because, like, she's gone past obviously past the Westview boundary, which we know isn't too far away, over
yes.
all of the camp, but then also out to a car dealership.
Yeah.
So we're getting further and further out, and I sort of wonder, like, how much of New Jersey does she control now?
Yeah, and it keeps the shape because you can see it in that, like, final shot. You could see angles. You can't It's
Yeah.
not just like a dome or a sphere.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
still keeping the whole hex side of things, but, yeah, and it's interesting. It literally seems like there's only 3 people that got away, the director, 2 other people, and then our 2 heroes, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
What
so
now?
I think I'm intrigued to see how she treats those people she's just gotten in her field,
Yeah.
because there's a part of me that wonders if she's going to, like, in some way, like, punish the people who were coming to attack her by doing something horrible in their lives. Like, because she now controls everything, so but yeah, I just kind of wonder what she might end up doing there.
Yeah, I think being stuck in a circus is bad enough.
Yeah.
Which I also saw on Twitter, I can't take credit for this, but the first introduction of Darcy, she says, "Oh, we're a full clown car," and then all those
Yeah.
scientists are clowns
Yeah.
later, and I maybe she might even be one later, but, it just would be kind of a funny kinda back to one joke there, but,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, God, you know what? I watched this episode, and I'm just every time I watch an episode, I'm just like, what? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know what to expect. Like, the previous episode, obviously, with the big reveal, which was kind of slightly spoiled. But also, like, I actually had a former coworker bring up a very good point about the whole multiverse thing. It goes, well, Jonah Jameson showed up at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, and that's the kind of the same time as this blip thing. Do you think this isn't just a, hey, this happens to be the same actor playing the same character? Do you think it's like that whole multi-universe thing? Because obviously there's a lot of stuff going on in the rumor mill about the latest Spider-Man is going to have, all the three different Spider-Mans in there. It's not quite been confirmed, but I don't know. It was an interesting take. And
Yeah,
then
and
this whole
Doctor
thing,
Strange's next movie is literally called "And the
the
Multiverse of Madness."
exactly. So, I mean, which I'm actually happy about. I would rather have kind of like these little, and Marvel's been doing this since its inception, which we covered
Mhm.
in our pending final podcast, which you could totally check out in the link down below. But about how they set this kind of stuff
Yeah.
up. And so I would not put it past them that they're kind of like, hey, you know that thing that we showed you like 4 films ago? We're paying it off here, and also stuff we touched on this show. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely think we're
Yeah.
going that way, but I just don't know how and how in
Y
depth we're going that way.
yeah. I do think that we will end up with, I think this will probably end with a multiverse, um, scenario, whether it's sort of a positive outcome or a negative outcome where sort of multiverses are colliding. That's sort of the next question, because I think they said that Doctor Strange was going to be horror,
Yeah.
um, which I'm so into.
Oh, yeah, it
I'm
was
very
also
excited by
Raimi?
that.
Come on, like, Ted Raimi doing it?
It's
Like,
gonna be
mhm.
great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got obviously I did find it interesting that we had in Spider-Man Far From Home, we had Mysterio, s- who wasn't from a different universe, but used that as his excuse.
Yeah.
And it's just a fun thing that he used that as his excuse, which kind of makes you think it can't be real because it was a lie that he told. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how this all moves forward.
Yeah.
I do think at the end of this, I do think we're gonna lose Vision.
Yeah. Oh, yes, like,
Um,
oh,
which
I'm preparing myself for this, but
breaks my heart.
which is funny because as someone who's been converted to loving Robot Boy, thanks to you and this show, I like vision it was very tragic in Endgame, but like again, I didn't have there was no stakes for me with these characters, but
Yeah,
now the show and like obviously dealing with that theme of pain and grief, because this is
grief.
also something that like Monica has touched on several times in the episodes, that because she knows what that grief feels like,
Yeah,
losing her mother. So, and I think that's a very interesting way to put a very adult real subject. That's what a lot of us are dealing with because of the past year in a
yeah,
show, obviously inadvertently because this show
yeah,
was written and started to production before 2020. But it's interesting, and so I it's gonna be I'm gonna feel it this time. I didn't quite feel it in obviously Infinity War, but I'm
yeah.
gonna feel this one. I'm gonna
I
feel this one.
I do think on the at the big, I'm gonna say maybe a quarter of the way into this episode, Monica says if Wanda is the problem, then she has to be the solution. And
Yes.
I do think that's probably how this will end. I think she is going to be the solution to this, but it's probably not going to be in the way that they want.
Mhm.
Because I think what they want is for it to, but she's probably going to.
Oh, of course.
Really, really good for all of our audio listeners. For me to do that with entirely hand gestures.
Expanding and contracting. So basically, they want her to contract and make the hex go away, where actually, no, she's probably going to expand it.
Yep.
Good catch. Good
Yep.
catch.
But yeah, I
Uh,
I can absolutely see this ending with her sort of changing the whole world. Maybe not to her liking,
yeah.
but definitely, I think we will definitely see a House of M outcome in the way that Wanda changes everything.
Yeah.
Um, and also knowing that we have things like Hawkeye coming up, we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like seeing if and where those sit.
Yeah.
Because as we've discussed on here before, this takes place maximum 1 month after Endgame,
Yeah.
because Monica comes back to Sword after 3 weeks, um, and at that point, it's a couple of days after the town has been taken over. So, if Falcon and the Winter Soldier is set at this same time, how are they going to experience anything from it? Same with Hawkeye. Same. I mean, Loki is going to be all over history. I don't think we need to worry about that one.
Yeah.
Which I'm still very excited about. But yeah, lots of possible ramifications further out, which is why nobody gets to talk about the stuff they're working on when there's
Yeah,
something crazy
exactly.
like
There's
this happening.
exactly. It's like if you just digress the littlest thing, then
Yeah.
yeah, it could spoil everything. But I think that's pretty much everything
Yeah,
you wanted
looking
to.
forward to next week's to see the outcome of everything for everyone who's been taken in by the new
Yeah.
radius of the hex.
Well, because the other thing is too, I don't think we'll now get any broadcast now because our kind of seeing what the camp is seeing is now gone because it's been like sucked or
Yeah.
absorbed. I think we're now just going to go into we're now on the show. There is no broadcast within a broadcast. I could be wrong, but I think we're just kind of going to get right into it now. And
Mm.
but that
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility that that's going to
I
happen.
could be wrong, but I'm very excited. This show just
Yeah,
keeps getting better and better and better, and I think we got 4 more. I think they said or 3
something
more.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's
Um,
9
one
episodes.
last
Yes.
question before we end.
Mm.
Who do you think Monica is going to meet?
Oh well, this is yeah. We were trying to kind of
Who do
say.
you think it's going to be?
Do you know what? I have no idea, and I like that because I think I'll be so pleasantly surprised, kind of thing. Like you have a
Yeah.
smile. Who do you think?
Well, I mean, there's not many people she has sort of connections with, right?
Yeah,
I'm banking on Talos.
yeah.
I'm banking on Talos
Which
as
that could
Nick
be
Fury.
great. Oh, that
Let's
would be
just get
good
Sam Jackson in for
because
one
they did
episode.
say, like, in the Twitterverse that, like, "Oh, there's gonna be this massive cameo that people aren't gonna expect that's gonna be like the Luke Skywalker to WandaVision kinda thing," so I don't know if Telios would be that kind of
No,
grandeur of
but
a
Nick Fury
cameo.
would be.
Exactly.
But the thing
So,
is we know that Talos is the one who is piloting Nick Fury around at the moment
yes.
on Earth. So we will never know until next week, and then we
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. And then we'll be like, "Oh my god, here we go." But, oh, well,
Can't wait.
fantastic. I can't wait either. So, where can they find you, Helen?
I am Ketsi Ita N on Twitter, and you can find us at wherestreams_CT on Twitter as well.
And then you can find me at Shenanigen on Twitter with an EN, not an AN. And thanks for checking out this episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And to our audio listeners as well, thank you so much. Appreciate all the support we've been getting. And fingers crossed, we will see you guys next time.